Yep. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. Today we have Sue Heineman from the National Symphony Orchestra. Sue has been the principal bassoonist of the National Symphony Orchestra since September 2000. Prior to joining the NSO, she held positions with the New Haven, Memphis, New Mexico, and New Zealand Symphony Orchestras. She has appeared as soloist with the NSO on numerous occasions, as well as with the Kennedy Center Chamber Players, comprised of principal players from the NSO. Ms. Heineman has since performed as guest principal bassoonist of the Los Angeles Philharmonic and is a frequent soloist at conferences of the International Double Reed Society. A former member of the Aspen Wind Quintet, she has since performed with American Chamber Players, Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center, Santa Fe Chamber Music Festival, Santa Fe Opera, and Metropolitan Opera. In summers, she has played and taught at Aspen, Eastern Music Festival, National Orchestral Institute, mainly Mozart, Bodin, and Grand Teton Music Festival. Originally from Philadelphia, Ms. Heineman holds a Bachelor of Music degree from Eastman and a Master degree from Juilliard. She has also completed a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University of Rochester, graduating summa cum laude with Phi Beta Kappa honors, and was the recipient of a Fulbright scholarship to Salzburg. Her teachers include Shirley Curtis, David Van Hosen, Milan Turkovic, Judith LeClaire, and Stephen Maxim. Hi, Sue. How are you doing?
Hey,
Great.
I've never heard that read out loud. It's really weird. It's like, this is your life, Sue
Yeah.
Heineman. Because
Everything you've ever done.
some of those things were a really long time ago. I was like, wait, what? Oh gosh, like Metropolitan Opera, like that was in the '90s.
Oh, wow.
Like I subbed for one run of Semaramide, like assistant principal bassoon. So and I played 5 shows. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like
Talk about padding your resume.
yeah. Well, but anyways, yeah. So I'm sure everyone might be dying to see some kittens as well. So just foreshadowing everyone if they might be making
I
a
am in.
little appearance.
Yeah, what he's referring to, if people don't know, like I've been fostering dogs and cats for years actually, and then because of the pandemic, because we're not working, I've been able to commit to taking like litters of kittens. So I have my. What are they doing over there? Yeah, over here in the room, there's a mother and 6 kittens, and it's very, very cute.
Oh, so cute.
They're very cute.
Yeah.
It smells really good in here too.
Yeah. Okay. So we will get started with the masterclass portion. Today, we have with us. I'm gonna put him on the screen here. We have Mark Lauer. Mark is a doctoral student at the Florida State University. He also plays principal bassoon at the Northwest Florida Symphony Orchestra and the Columbus Symphony Orchestra of Georgia. Great, so Mark will be playing Tchaik 4, the opening solo for Movement 2. So I'm just going to play you guys his recording, and I have the music on the screen. And yeah, enjoy. Okay, yeah, so I'll just let you guys get started.
Okay, so for those at home, so what happens here is that the recording that you guys just heard, I got in an email, so I did not just hear it just now with you. So I did listen to it about an hour ago, but I am going to ask Mark to refresh us all. And can you go ahead and play the opening a bit and play a few notes? I've been thinking about this excerpt a lot this week because I've actually been watching some of the various series of master classes that people are producing. I think this is the only one done by a high school student. It's pretty impressive. but and just think about how many times some of these teachers have coached this exact excerpt. So let me ask you before you play, do you have any sense? How many people do you think you've played this piece for? Uh-huh. Let me see if I can turn up your volume. I can't really hear you very well. I don't know if Teddy can help with that. I heard you say at least a dozen.
Yeah, at least a
Oh,
dozen.
okay, that's better. Yeah. So, okay, over, do you, like, you're including undergrad, graduate school. I mean, you haven't had a dozen teachers probably, right?
Yeah.
So, so what would you say? Like some of them are your teachers, who are the other people?
Uh,
Something.
Friends, colleagues, people who do math classes.
Uh-huh. Okay. And what kind of stuff, what kind of feedback do you usually get?
A lot of talk about phrasing and
Uh-huh. Do you find that it's pretty consistent? Or do you get conflicting advice ever? Like somebody said, oh, you have to do this, and somebody else said, no, you have to do that, and that kind of thing.
there's a lot of, when it comes to like exactly what the phrasing is, I get a lot of a bigger variety of ideas.
Uh-huh.
Certain things that I don't really hear any conflicting advice on is Mary's pitch tendencies.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, that sort of makes sense because I think a lot of us. I mean, certainly, if everybody, you have your own personal pitch tendencies, but a lot of the issues that you're having would be the same that any bassoonist will probably recognize. Let me no, the reason I was just curious about this thing about the phrasing because it is interesting, and I was thinking about like what are people hoping to get when they play this excerpt for somebody? It's like this thing you have to play for auditions. So let me play it for this person. But what new am I going to be able to tell you that you haven't already heard before? Is really an interesting thing to consider. And I always like to really encourage people to when asking about the different kind of phrasing tendencies. You know, it's important for you to. It's not like you have to pick one thing and then that's it, and you have to stick to it. But you always want to be mapping out. You know, you can't do all of the things that people have suggested, so you're going to have to make some choices. So why don't you go? Do you mind just playing sort of the first half of the excerpt, and let me see if I can guess what your phrasing scheme is from how you play it.
Mark, right before,
Wow, that's really
yeah. So sorry.
Sorry.
So the your microphone volume is a little low. Could you turn up the gain maybe, or your Zoom input volume? Yeah.
Sorry, that's like an instinct. Like ah.
Yeah.
Trombones, trumpets. I love you guys. I always tell them I love you, but.
Yeah. All these difficulties with Zoom and whatnot.
This is a good time to have a kitten while you guys work this out.
Ooh.
All right, is this better?
A little
that's better.
bit.
Let me put the cat
Okay.
back.
Okay.
And yeah, audience, just let me know if you can hear him better now.
Okay. It's so funny. Zoom is so funny. So now that he has it turned up, it's like you Teddy, could you hear? I could hear like some like resultant tones going like sort of in parallel fifths.
Huh.
Okay. Okay. So, but what this is kind of. I'm trying to embrace the difficulty of listening this way. And I mean, you've probably, I'm sure, now everybody's got a phone that they can record on and stuff. So you're probably used to recording yourself on something that maybe doesn't pick you up the most flattering way, but you can still tell basic stuff. And if you, I find that when I record on my iPhone, it really accentuates like the high partials. So like if I crack a note, it's more obvious. If something's sharper, it's more obvious, kind of thing. So it's almost like a magnifying glass in a bad way. So I this is all to say that I'm probably hearing some distortion, but I think I am getting a certain sense of where I can feel you directing your line, and then some other places, because it's coming through the same medium, that, oh, here I don't quite get the same conviction of, like, I'm not sure where we're going. I think that I'm basically hearing the basic structures of what seem important and appropriate, like you leaning on the fourth note, the A, the first, appoggiatura, and then you had a nice taper on the first F, and the second one a little bit fuller. I mean, basic theory, and I mean, David McGill does a beautiful job of just laying this out very clearly on the CD, like just the basic, like, skeletal things that I think pretty much have to be there, like that the intervals taper, and then, right? So like whatever you do, like you're probably never going to have some conception where you go, right? Like I think we can probably all agree we're going to taper from the F, C, and then a couple bars even more delicately, gently, and what does this mean pitch-wise? C, F, C is flat and persistent, F is sharp and open, so you have all those like issues to negotiate. But then what else is happening? So I feel like when I play this excerpt, and at this point, I haven't taken an audition in many years. When I play this solo in the orchestra, it's a different experience than playing it as an audition. But that's only true insofar as you limit your imagination when you're preparing for an audition. So that is a syntactically complicated way to say that if you're going to play this as you're practicing, part of the preparation has to be a sense of what is my role when I get to this solo after the first half has already happened. Overture, concerto, whatever. We have an intermission. Audience went out to drink, whatever. Come back. Opening, first movement, blah, blah. There's big solos in the first movement, whatever. And now this oboe solo, nice happy middle section, and dancing. And now finally, have you played it in an orchestra?
No.
Okay, so you have to really use your imagination to, like, what is this going to feel like? Because, and I can say, I've done this many times. I have no idea. Definitely well into double digits, like how many times I've performed this. But it's never ceases to be this kind of amazing moment when everything just sort of filters away, and you kind of feel it coming. You have a long cello line kind of going down, and it's beautiful, and it kind of slows down, and then it's just silence. So how you come in there, like how you get those first four notes, what kind of I tend to, what am I trying to say? It's important to have a certain kind of attack on the D flat, right? A certain kind of motion to the C. But for me, the way my brain works, only way I can orient that is to think about where's that A natural going to be. It's like I have to already suss that out. You have the cellos. Now we're going to start with hesitation. But already here, I'm hanging out on that D flat. It sounds like I'm suspended. You don't know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. I know where I'm going. I know where that A is going to be. So that, I think that if you think like that, then you can start to orient your phrasing in a way that will then make coming in quietly on a D flat seem part of a journey rather than like, oh my God, I'm going to come in, it's going to be sharp or whatever, and then I hang out. Because, does that make sense? Like if you think about how you want to hesitate and come in out of tempo, but you want to be holding this audience of hopefully someday, again, we'll have audiences, and you're like, come with me. And I'm hesitating. And also, of course, by the way you're playing it, conductor, and I'm going to put the cellos over here to my left. Sometimes they're over there. Today they're over there. You know, where's that downbeat going to be? Luck. I think it's cellos. Somebody's playing on a downbeat. Okay, dry reed. Go ahead, feel free to play a few notes, and then let's see if we can, you know, give us a few seconds to feel the vastness of the empty concert hall. You're way in the back because you play the bassoon. Okay, how did you feel about that? You want to just do it again. Do it again. Okay, so that seemed better. What did you do differently that this time the D flat wasn't nearly as explosive?
Well, mentally, I think I was trying to kind of not focus on the note being trying to get the note perfect, but so much getting the affect, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And in that, I guess I was trusting my ability to play a D flat quietly, and being able to think more artistically about it, rather than stressing out about the nuts and bolts of what I have to do here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like all of this is not going to take away the necessity to have good flexible reeds and air support and whatever, but I find that this is a way that it's easier for me to find to get the best out of my reed and to figure out where it is. I mean, and you know, hopefully we're always testing our reeds for response and doing whatever articulation exercises we're doing, but with whatever thing I've got right there, if I think about the very front of the note, I'm likely to miss out on thinking about the spin through the note and how it goes to the next note. So usually, like, even if I'm lucky enough to get a good response, I think something might still go wrong, right? Whereas if I, you know, get the air moving, I mean, you figure it out. That's the thing. Your body starts to figure out, like, what is the rhythm that will bring me to the response of this note, and then then you can figure out, okay, oh, I realize now, because of the way I was thinking about this, because it's the beginning of an excerpt and it has to be soft and it's on every audition and it takes on this whole big thing, you might be doing something like really weird with your note start that you wouldn't have done if you had this exact bunch of notes in the middle of a milli etude where you're playing comfortably. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so we're trying to, like, kind of get back to, like, okay, what is my best feeling of these bunches of notes? Okay, so having said that, so let's think about this again, and let's really what I'm saying. We're going to go as little attack as possible and moving toward the A natural. I almost feel bad because, like, for me to say as little attack as possible sometimes makes things worse. Let me interrupt you one second. Okay, so I like that. I mean, I'm not going to make too much judgment about how much noise I'm hearing on the front because of the zoom, it's likely that it's a harder sound than what you're getting. I know this because when I've made recordings of myself for some of our NSO at home, I'm like, oh my God, listen to that. But I mean, the important thing isn't what you do right here, right this second. It's kind of where you go with this. And when you go into your practice room and you start to experiment, if you're able to discover a bigger sense of ease and comfort. What I feel like I'm hearing is like some nice, you kind of get going. The direction is pretty good, but it kind of stops when you go over the bar line. So I hear, da, da, and it's really super important. Like, of all the places where you want to make sure you're directing your air, it's over a bar line, and if you are rearticulating. I want to think about like if it's a cellist who changed directions of the bow, there's still hopefully motion in both directions. Let me hear that again. Very important. It should help also the opening of it. Okay, now is it possible to take the, do you feel like you're playing softly?
Yeah.
Gently? Okay. It probably would help if you just moved a little bit further away. Let's start this again and make sure that as we're going through, at no point, even through whatever is happening here on the Zoom, I want to feel like emotion is gentle and nothing like impassioned, right? It's more like a tentative, like, but in, kind of like in motion, that kind of thing, right? And so you're going to have motion through that, a little bit of lean, but never. Mr. Maxim used to say all the time, I don't want to hear you blowing. It's like you want to cancel the resistance of the instrument. Or he had a lot of sayings. That it's funny because Morelli and I, we picked up a lot of different phraseology that kind of describes the same thing. Like when I hear him talking, I'm like, that sounds like a Maxim thing, but he, when I studied with him. Anyway, but what I remember him saying all the time is like compression plays the instrument. So you lean in, you get into your place and then you don't really feel like you're leaning or blowing anymore. If you want the note to move, if you want the gesture to move, you lean in, but you don't feel like you're blowing. I think I may have misspoken, but I mean the point is, so if you want to spin the sound more or have it float or whatever, you can do that, or expand it or contract it or all of these things, but none of them sound like somebody going like blowing. Like even when you get the biggest, loudest sound, you want it to have a feeling of like resonance and not like that sense of strain. Can we try that again? Try that again from the opening. And I still feel like you're not getting over that bar line. How about just play that a couple times. Do one more time. So if you can, I think you can play these back later. It'd be interesting. So if you listen to this, because they're all slightly different. There's slightly different sort of amount of space between the notes, slightly different heaviness of tongue, of articulation, or whatever. And so it would be super helpful to like listen to that and experiment around with that. Like, what are the different ways that I can say this? What are the different physical ways I can execute this and have it be, okay, 3 notes, and then, I'm going to start with my tongue. Because one of them was almost connected. I heard sort of a light tongue. One of them was, I think, kind of connected, but I heard a little bit clearer, more enunciated tongue. And then one of them, there was like almost like the air stopped a little bit. And I think that, what we want to do, it's like you want to be able to, the better your support and connection is over the bar line, the more you kind of keep that compression going, keep that sort of leaning, spinning feeling, the more you actually can enunciate, but it will be less disruptive to the line. You know what I mean? Because your tongue isn't like sort of making all this like mechanical, like weird things happen with the reed, and there's not like that little barky sound or whatever that we get. So, it's like, I mean, I don't know how you, like, when I practice like fast notes, I always think really long notes, you have da, 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 because the faster, the more my air is going and canceling the resistance of the instrument, like I'm already there at that place of sound production. It's easier to enunciate on that. It's almost like a ball like bouncing on like a hard rubber ball or something, whereas like a ball bouncing on a rubber ball on a, you know what I'm saying. So it's like we kind of get messed up when we think, oh, I need to like not tongue that so hard. And then I think sometimes what we do is then we correct the wrong thing. We don't keep our air spinning. If you keep your air spinning, you can tongue harder, but it doesn't sound as hard. Does that kind of jive with any experience you've had?
Yeah.
Let's see. And what I'm saying is, it's not like you're going to blow louder or crescendo over that thing. You're leading toward that A natural, and you are so committed to that A natural that you're not letting go of that B flat. Da, 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 da. Just like that, and now you've articulated. It's clear from over there, but it's still beautiful sound quality and still has good direction. This is how we sound like string players rather than clunky wind players. Okay, go ahead. Okay, I like that much better. Let's go ahead. Let's go on with that. Let's continue through this. See what happens. Yeah. Okay, let's stop there. I'm going to stop there for a second because we got past the first four notes. That's good. Very important as you're playing this, and these are the things that I return to. If I know we're playing this, there's a few, I just jump right into these things. I go, and make sure I have those, because I don't feel like you're really in control of the C to the F in the middle of the phrase. And it really has to, they have to fit together somehow musically. So however the timing ends up going, and there's all kinds of variables, we have to be so flexible, like either we are adjusting it to some colleague, or maybe the slur from your B flat to F doesn't go quite the way you want, so you kind of shift a little bit to kind of realign yourself. But now you're committed. That's the way that went. You still have to be thinking. It absolutely, there's no way around being able, you have to be able to control the nuance of that C to F natural. And however beautifully, if you tapered that F to that C as beautifully as possible, you're probably hanging yourself out to dry, to be honest, because there's no way you're going to get the, you know what I'm saying? Like, and let's just play around with the two intervals. I think I've probably modulated to Q sharp minor or whatever, but the F to C and then C to the F. So you start to notice things like that second time you played it sounded like Shostakovich 9. You're going for louder. So it's the same notes, right? I mean, this is good to know. Like, what is my range of expression on these two notes on this same interval in these two different, completely different soundscapes. Oh, okay. You know what I was going to say though. So the thing is, between those two intervals, and there's a lot of variables, right? You have the F, and you have the C, and then you have this how the C behaves after being slurred from the F, and then you have the same thing, F, C to the F. So like, let's say it's pretty well in tune. It sounds pretty well in tune to me, but the way the F hands off to the C, first interval, doesn't sound to me like the way the C hands off to the F. And that's just because our instrument is like weird, and like, so you're, one of the physics or the resistance, everything is so different. So if you want to make the nuance of the C to the open F sound like really delicate. You need to have really good control of the F. Hey, how are you fingering that open F? Right there at the end before the breath that I'm talking about.
I'm just using a standard finger.
Just whisper key? Yeah, so I mean, a lot of people add something to that. I do, depending on my read, depending on whatever, because it's really important for me to be able to not only, it's not just to make a taper from the C to the F. It's like, what's the color? What's the shape of the interval? What happens at the end of that C right before it changes to the F? Now, and these aren't things that I'm sitting down with like a checklist, but these are things that I notice, like when I hear you play. When I hear the F to the C, it's a certain kind of handoff. There's a certain kind of connection. Where from the C to the F, it sounds, if I can describe it, it's sort of a little bit more open because there's not the same resistance. So there's not that same tiny moment of like tension. And these things really do become significant because all of these differences in the resistance of our instrument, like an open F compared to a C, compared to the F above, are going to affect how they take your vibrato, for example. So if you are, unless you're intimately aware with the relative resistances of these notes, and you can manipulate them at your will, the vibrato is likely to, we sort of just subconsciously like, oh my God, I don't feel secure, let me just vibrate here. Or we kind of go on autopilot. And if you go on autopilot, some notes go, and some notes go waka 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 waka, or some, you know what I mean? So that's also, anyway, so all of that packed into those two intervals. I feel like usually if I can get those two intervals on my reed comfortable where I can really nuance just those, make those sound beautiful and tender, then I'm in a good place to move on. I cannot believe I'm managing to talk about this for so long. I was thinking, how are we possibly going to fill an hour with only one excerpt? Look, let me hear you play the second half, because I want to talk now about the same sort of thing, but like at the more expansive end of the excerpt. So why don't you go ahead and start after the breath? I can't wait to answer all the pickle questions. All right. Okay, so I think that, so what we need to have here is textures and like sort of peaks and valleys kind of thing, because it's repetitive, right? You have your sequence, so, and it's and then it's again, okay, it's like too much. It's too much. I can't handle all the emotion. So what we need to kind of figure out is what is the overall thing? Like if what is, everybody knows what curves look like now. Like how does this curve look? Is it, where is the high point of that? Let's even say like in the first few notes, we might have the tendency to really want to like, ooh, here's another appoggiatura, right? Because that's what we were doing in the beginning. And now it's like, now I'm going, but now what do you do, right? Because if you've like spent all your money on there, it's coming through a little bit too much like that. I feel like I want to challenge you, even to convince you, even through this medium, that it's still very tender, and that there's just some moments that just, so that the range of actual decibels is much narrower, but the range of like emotion is greater. Can you start again from there? From the middle. I'm going to go ahead and steal because David McGill said it really beautifully on that CD, which is, at least I think that's where I got it. So you have right. That's a moment. I think if we're going to take a little time there, it's then the notes that follow. It just not ease up on those, right? Because I think that it's just too much. Every interval sounds so I would slow down those notes a little bit more so that then when you get to the next iteration of also sometimes I mean I don't know what you're doing dynamically. Let me just ask you, do you have a sense like you have the F F F E flat E flat E flat E flat E flat E flat, what sort of intensity levels, what's your progression there?
My intention is to have the first one be more intense, the second one be a little bit less intense, and the third one be even less, especially since there's no accent on the next downbeat in 288 like there is in
Okay, so yeah, and I think it might be helpful. Just I mean, this might sound a little woo-woo, but so intense, and then maybe let's say instead of thinking like I want to make it less intense, I want to make it more something. What's positive? What do you want? What are you trying? What do you want it to be? More what?
I guess like more subdued, more
Mm-hmm.
relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to partial credit for those answers. Can you come up with some more words? Because I think, but subdued and relaxed to me are still the absence of intensity. What are we actually trying to do with those, with this sequence? I mean, there's not a correct answer. I mean, of course, there's what I'm thinking, which is the correct answer. But and when it's
more of a I'm at a loss for words.
okay. So I will tell you that it's funny because I can think of two different times in my life when I performed this piece where I found myself in the second or third performance because we did pairs. One of them was not one of them was in a different orchestra and one of them was in the NSO. But both times there was just something going on in my life that was sad. And I got to that excerpt, and of course I'm freaked out. I always freak out at that. I mean, by freak, kind of freak out that nobody around you, you're managing it eternally. It's like people say, I didn't know you get nervous, but yeah, they don't know what's going on inside there. But I was able, 2 times in my life on this very solo, going in to think, what would happen if I tried to express this feeling that I'm having through music? And especially the first time, I remember I played that solo and I got to that second half and I was just like, oh man, I am so sad about this. And I made it sound very sad and vulnerable. And anyway, these are the kind of words I'm looking for. You want it to be something more vulnerable, more tender, more reminiscent, something like that. And I made myself tear up. I was like, gosh, that was beautiful. And you know what happened? After the concert, one of the violinists came up and said, oh my gosh, that was so amazing tonight. And I was like, I did it. I expressed feelings through music. So, I mean, it sounds a little bit ridiculous. I was still very, very sad. It didn't solve on any of my problems, except that gave me something to work with then in the future when I came to the solo, because I think I really I mean, and I'm not saying I have any historical knowledge of specifically what Tchaikovsky's trying to express during there, other than just the sort of general sense of the piece. Like the oboe plays, it's a simply say, and when we do it, it's at the end. So you kind of, I think it's sort of taken for granted that we're going to play it with a little bit more freedom and a little bit more nostalgia sorts of things. I think that the word gets used a lot with this excerpt. And then you also have the beautiful violin part overlaid that the oboe didn't have. So there's a much more, I don't know, I just feel like, I think we got the better deal in this one. It's like the only time in all of repertoire where the bassoon solo is better than the oboe solo. That is, anyway, so it's a gift. It's a gift. We get to do this. Aren't we lucky? So how do you do that? So yeah, I don't know. You have to have a read that's really responsive, but you have to have the imagination. You have to want to do that, and you have to. I think it's worthwhile. You know, you mentioned that you kind of do like sort of 3, 2, 1. It sounds like you mentioned the lack of the accent on the third one, which. Take your word for it. I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember. I should probably know that, but whatever. If I have to play it, I'll see it. But sometimes it's fun to let the second one down. That is oh so tender. And then you roll back and whatever. And the thing about all of these things is to use enough, have your imagination force you to develop the technique to make these different things happen. Because the other thing is, what if you work out your version of it? You get to the first rehearsal, and the conductor says, you know, they do this, and then they do this, and then they want it to be that, and then they do that. Now, and you have to now make your phrasing take up that much time instead of this much time. But it's on you to have it make sense. And if you've been practicing it only so that you can do it these are the colors that you generally get, right? Then you're not going to feel as flexible and comfortable. So I won't try to make you do it on the spot, but I just really highly encourage you, like, just try to make it beautiful in like 10 different ways. And then otherwise also just, you can find a billion recordings of this and listen to, listen to the Miguel CD. I really like his take on it. It's just like, hey, do this here, do this here. It's like, and the thing is, you can do everything he says there, and 10 people can play it, and it still could sound very different. So it's not like that, acknowledging that this is stepwise, that this is an appoggiatura, that this is, kind of sets up this kind of sequence, determines only one shaping or pacing of it. Anyways, that makes sense? Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you want to play anymore, just go home and do it, or want to see some cats, or what Teddy, what do we think?
If you feel ready, we can move on to a Q&A section if you want.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you want to try it again, Mark, or do you want to just like kind of? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, great. I'm gonna try and fix some volume issues right here. Okay.
I'm just going to turn you down a little bit here.
Yeah.
So
Okay. I think it should work right now.
Yeah.
The audience will let me know if it's not.
Is there not? I wonder. Mom.
Okay, so I think I guess we're going to start some questions. So our first question is from Carol. She says, "I love that you take time off to travel and run and have a life. What do you do to get back in shape after taking time off?"
That's an interesting question. So well, one thing that I definitely do is I look at what I have coming up. So I have gone for 2, 3, even up to 4-week trips, backpacking or whatever, bike trips or whatever. Usually it's more like 3, but if I go, I don't take the bassoon with me. So first thing you do is you look at the repertoire you have coming when you come back, or if you're a student, what kind of things you want to be working on, and make sure you don't leave it all a mess. It's kind of like your house. This is actually kind of a funny thing, but maybe it's a little quirky, but I always clean my house before I leave because I don't want to come back and then have all this mess. And so the same thing with, I make sure I have a bunch of reads that are going in various different stages. And I do a lot of that work before I leave. And if there's repertoire that I have, I make sure to get to kind of a place. So that after that, it's usually that's usually more or less enough to come back and kind of hit the ground running. Maybe my mouth feels a little bit weak or whatever, but there's so much of it is really more about just being like mentally prepared for stuff, I think. I remember, I remember taking off a few weeks, about a month before I was playing the John Williams concerto, but I just worked really hard on it, like for a couple months, like in the fall. So then I took this break. When I came back to it, it was actually like kind of fresh. So, and another thing, actually, this is slightly just anecdotal, but one time I was cycling in Laos, and I had Beethoven 4 the week that I came back, and the thing that I was mostly concerned about was, the first line, getting that B flat, getting that F, and I add the keys. I'm adding those keys, man. I'm adding both keys for that F. Beethoven 4, and then the G flat. That if I get through the intro. Because I could practice this solo on my bicycle. I would practice it the same way I practice the solo in home, which is I'm doing it backwards. And I'm getting that kind of stuff. And I think honestly I could do similar kinds of things with Tchaikovsky kind of thing. You kind of get in your brain, like, what does it take to prepare? But when I was a student or like a young professional, I did not do this because I was freelancing, and I would be like, if I'm going on a trip, the bassoon comes with me because you never know when you're going to get called for something. So there's a little bit something that's, if you know what your schedule is, and if certainly in the summer, I come back and then we have like a pops concert for Labor Day, and then we often have another week off, so that's like a no-brainer. It's like really easy, and a lot of people sound a little bit rusty after the summer break, to be honest. But wait, it comes back quick. Here, just one final thing. As you get older, it does come back quicker because you have more years of like memory of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is from Gordon, who says he is a kitten fan. He says, I've heard that you make reeds with the wire twist on the side instead of the top or bottom. If this is true, why do you do that?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, this came up in a masterclass that Judy was doing the other day. It was your competition, a competing bassoon series, and the reason that I do this is that I find when I make the blank, and I deliberately side slip too. This is something that I do because most people that I've met who say they try to line up the blades when they make the reed. They try to line them up. They don't want them to slip, and they look at them and they line them up and they line them up. If you look at their actual reeds, the finished ones in the box, they're all slipped. That's been my experience. That most of them are a little bit slipped. Yeah. So I just want to control that slip. Mm-hmm. So if these are my blades, I want, if this one's going to be a little overlapped and this one's going to be a little underlapped, so then, whereas if it's like, if this happens, if both, the thumb is kind of messing up if this happens, right, then you have one flat and then both are slipped within. Mm-hmm. So, and that kind of thing I have found tends to happen on the side. If it's going to happen at all, it'll happen on the side of the twist. So I find that the side that I put the twist on usually arcs a little bit more than the other side. And I think that seems to be true for a majority of people whose reeds that I've looked at. They'll say, I play wire up. Why do you play wire up? Well, because maybe they don't really know why, but I think a lot of times the wire up is because that that's the stronger blade. So you want your lower lip to be on the weaker blade. Anyway, if I put it on the side, then I have less likely to build in just like a tent on one side. So that's the answer. I often will switch the blade, the wire once it's made. If I'm finding that I'm still having like one blade that's a little bit more arced than the other, I'll put it onto the twisty sides on the flatter side, and that tends to help that one to flex. I mean, it seems to sort of make sense because where the twist is, like there's a small area there where you don't have like two pieces of wire putting pressure on there. I know people who are like, oh my God, I would never take off the wire once the reed was made. But then there's there's many successful people who take off all of the wires after they make the blank and they do that bevel thing. So anyway, that's the answer.
Yeah, interesting. That's a really lot to think about right there. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I've never really thought about changing where the twist is.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing you want to do is just look at your reed box and see if you can see any patterns.
Mhm.
Like if you always are playing your reeds wire up, then that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do what I do, but it means that there's something that makes a difference.
Mhm.
So that would be interesting.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Next question. It's from Karen. She says, "What is Sue's favorite memory from working with Stephen Maxim?"
Oh, wow. It was probably when I was at Banff, just because we had 3 weeks with him every day, masterclass, like for 3 hours. And I really feel like that summer was transformative for me in terms of just kind of his sound production, like the way he would speak about compression and leading. And I really felt like in my trajectory as a player and my comfort level on the instrument that summer really changed that, like because I would just every day play for him, and he had these ways of saying, okay, try this, squeeze a little here, there, whatever, and then suddenly your sound would be like free and open. It's like, how did you do that? And so to just be able to, and I would record them all, and so to come back and just be able to sort of find my way to a way of playing with more comfort was really great.
Mm-hmm.
I remember even that summer, like some people were asking me to play chamber music, and I was like, I don't feel like I can do anything. Like all I'm playing right now is D's. Like, I mean, it was just like I was like rebuilding my sort of like relationship with, and all that elevation too. It's crazy. Yeah, being at Banff with him was wonderful.
Yeah, great. And yeah, Karen would also like to add that Sue is working the Bassoons Without Borders camp next month.
Uh-huh.
Go check that out. Bassoons Without Borders, their Facebook page. Check out our website. Yeah, it's a really great opportunity. A bunch of great artists lined up.
Yeah, I think these things are fun. I mean, what you've done Teddy is so amazing. Is that like everybody is like all like, sure, I'll come and
yeah, super generous.
I mean, it's just like what Marley was saying. It's like you kind of realize like you're a little bit starved for having contact with other people who do this. It's nice. Yeah. I mean, the kittens are great and all, but they. I mean, this is not usually my kind of a thing, but I have been watching like hours of bassoon masterclasses this week.
Yeah.
I'm like, suddenly it's like, oh, this is fascinating. It's something you kind of take for granted when you're doing it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I do miss playing in my youth orchestra and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I think you have a couple more questions if you have time.
Sure.
So one question we got in the audience is, what are some concepts that you picked up from your teachers at college? I guess that's kind of similar to the last one.
Yeah. Well, so I'm so regretful that I did not record my lessons with Van Heusen. I have just a couple little things, like I guess when I recorded a dress rehearsal for recitals. So, but when I think of Van Heusen, I think of practicing. We used to do Beethoven symphonies a lot with him. I mean, we definitely did excerpts, but it was like preparing the Beethoven symphonies that really kind of got me thinking about this sort of thing. He always mean, this is what Judy will always say too. I always talked about compared everything to playing the violin, and how to do those articulations that you have in Beethoven so much, where this kind of slur thing and then tonguing. What happens in the Tchaikovsky? I mean, there's so many times when you have to negotiate over a bar line in time, but do some kind of nuance and just practicing. Yeah, and it was all the Beethoven symphonies. We would just go through them all. It wasn't just like the solo from Beethoven 4 and the or just, it wasn't just a matter of like learning it to learn the repertoire, but he really insist on controlling and shaping your articulation and sound control and things, do that kind of stuff. And my teacher in high school, who was also Judy LeClair's teacher when she was in high school, was a wonderful bassoonist called Shirley Curtis, and she, so she was my first like really serious, demanding teacher, and man, she was amazing. I mean, she just really made you feel like it was just very cool, especially in that era to grow up with two women of different generations as my icons. Like, I mean, this was in the 1980s, and here's my teacher, Shirley Curtis, and her student, Judy LeClair, just won principal in the New York Philharmonic. So, I mean, I think I had a very different kind of view than most young women in that era. And both very just strong. And I mean, Shirley was great. She was extremely demanding, and she would swear at me all the time and call me lazy and just like my mother. but it was great because, I mean, it just, you really felt like this was important, and that she wasn't going to let you get away with not taking it seriously. So she, I mean, just some of those sort of basic things that I came through high school from her, like it was that I was always recording myself, even in high school, like on my little, back then, with this little rocks, and I was cassettes. I had a cassette player, and I would record myself practicing, and I would play it back, and she'd always be like, "That's the best teacher you'll ever have." And boy, I mean, and I find, hopefully now that it's so easy, people are recording themselves, but I find even now, when I am coaching somebody, or when I was teaching at Maryland, sometimes to try to get people to record themselves, like they're like, "Oh, I can't stand to listen to it." Yeah, you and me both. If you can't, why should I? So that probably, if I had to pick one major thing that I got from Shirley Curtis early on, was that the tape recorder is your best teacher.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people on social media, especially now. It's been like I've seen like a big wave of just people recording themselves, posting videos of themselves, and it's I mean, I guess this kind of goes back to what you said.
I mean, that could be a different thing. But the thing is, if you're going to do that and put it up on the line, hopefully, I mean, if you're willing to do that, you probably have listened to it and have some realistic idea.
Yeah.
And if you record it and you think, "Oh man, I'm not putting that on social media," well, then that's good. You've learned something, and now you go and fix it. But you won't see me posting my etudes on social media. I'm not doing that. No way.
Okay, let's see. Next question. Andrew Brady asks,
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. If you only had an hour a day to practice, how would you structure it?
What do you mean only an hour? Okay. Well, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it depends on where. Is he asking about me, Sue Heineman, my current life, or like as advice?
I don't know. I guess it's whatever you would like to interpret it as.
I mean, when I was a student and a young professional, I definitely it was always see what reads I have and play some. I would probably, and there was times in college where I'd be like, I actually would keep my practice chart and would do like, long tune, scales, etudes, whatever. I mean, that is not what I do now, though. I mean, what I do now, is I, first line of defense is the read, so I kind of see what's in there. I test them, check them with a tuner, and something that I definitely do. I always have a thermometer in my practice room and a
okay.
thermometer on the stage. I mean, I wouldn't say every single day but I work in the same place all the time. So at this point, I kind of know. But if I'm practicing and my room at home is 65 degrees or 85 degrees, any of those are possible. Both those are possible because my house is drafty and our air conditioning isn't very good. I need to pay attention to that and adjust my tuner accordingly, because if I sit at home and my room is 65 to 70 degrees and I have my tuner at where we play, which is 442, then when I get onto the stage and it's like 75 to 80, I am playing at like 490. So you definitely have to kind of think about that sort of thing. But, and if I'm actually working up repertoire, then it's just like I'm pretty good at kind of, you sort of figure out like which are the sections that are the most treacherous, and make sure you go through those slowly, like every time you come back to it.
Yeah, I think that is it for questions. I apologize to anyone if I missed them. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for being a part of this. I really appreciate it a lot. I think everyone in the audience is very glad to be able to hear from you, and yeah, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for putting it together. Thank you, Mark, for playing. I'm looking forward to more of these. How many more do you have set up?
We have a few. I think no promises, but we should be going till August, September-ish.
Can you tell us who else is, or is it like a secret? Do you like drib it out?
I don't know. Just in case someone cancels, I don't want to say, oh, this person canceled.
Yeah.
But we do have some
great.
wonderful artists lined up. So please stay tuned, everyone.
Cool.
Yeah, and then.
Well, I have liked you on Facebook, so I should see it in my feed the next time somebody's coming up.
Yeah, great.
Or we could just put it in our calendar for 7 o'clock Saturday night.
Yeah, every
right?
Saturday night.
Appointment TV. There you go.
Yes. 7 o'clock Eastern every Saturday.
Cool.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you so much to our sponsor, Barton Kane. They were super generous to help me get this all together, sponsor everything. We're wearing shirts, the same shirt, unintentionally.
Sorry, Mark. We didn't send Mark the memo.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, if you are in the market for any gouge-shaped profiled cane, they have a huge variety, different shapes, different profiles, different types of cane. Please go check them out. Amazing people. I love their cane. I use it personally. So
they're very cool.
Yeah, yeah. So visit bartoncane.com. Link is kind of at the bottom of the screen. And yeah, so thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned for next week's artist, and have a nice day. Bye everyone.
Good night, everybody.